Hi, this is Professor McLaughlin. I wanted to provide a video lecture on Chapter 5 and what your online course calls enacted law. I know you have a presentation you'll go through. I wanted to see if you guys found this helpful going through the slides as well, or if it's redundant. So I won't keep this too long, but I would like everyone's feedback on whether this helped. And at the end of this very brief lecture, I will switch to the assignment and give you maybe some helpful hints on assignment 5. So this chapter and what your authors call enacted law is going to focus on laws that are written, on laws that are passed through legislation or ratified. So the U.S. Constitution was ratified. There are amendments to it, and those needed to be voted on as well. So the laws in this chapter are focused on those that go through the legislative process and have also the checks and balances of governance in terms of potentially being declared unconstitutional or well, by judicial review, or not signed into law by the president or vetoed by the president. So the U.S. Constitution, it's published in various forms. You can find it in lots of different places. Statutes, both federal and state statutes, are passed as legislation that begins as a bill. So we have two houses of Congress. It's bicameral. We have a House of Representatives and we have a Senate. Those two houses together make up the U.S. Congress. There's lots of rules and political rules and constitutional rules governing how they function. But legislation is proposed as a bill. It's introduced in one of the houses, referred to a committee, and then it's voted on by the chamber in which it was introduced, and then sent to the other chamber or the other chamber, because I don't want to call it a house. There's a House of Representatives and the Senate. It can be amended, voted on and passed, voted on and not passed. If it's amended, it's sent back for revisions, and then both houses must pass the exact same bill. Then, because of the way the Constitution set up our checks and balances, Congress cannot then just pass a law. The president needs to check it. That's part of the checks and balances of governance and government that the Constitution created. The president either approves the bill or he can veto it. And then the other flip side, or rather the third side of that, is the judiciary does, if somebody sues and says the bill's unconstitutional, then a court will review it, not judicial review. So federal statutes and state statutes are passed by the federal Congress or a state Congress, state legislature. It can be public laws that affect all of us, or private laws concerning individuals or specific groups. So family code, that's not a good example. There's also, so public laws are more like laws that affect water rights, but there can be private ones as well. Federal statutes are published so that you can take a look at them. They're published chronologically at the end of each congressional session, which has a number. The slip law is the very first publication of an act of Congress, and it's published as a slip law, which just means it's not in the book yet. So it's a slip that gets put into the permanent book. But once it's published, it's published as the statutes at large, and it is always referred to as part of the congressional session in which it was passed. Codes. Now that is how the laws are topically organized. So the U.S. Code, we have unofficial and official publications. We don't use the unofficial publication as much, very rarely. In very specific areas of practice, you may use an unofficial publication, but for the most part, for our purposes, we're going to look at the U.S. Code and the official publication of a law. And then there's a U.S. Code Annotated. So many of these slides are going to refer to the physical books. So the physical books have pocket part supplements, which are really paper pockets that, like a file folder, glued to the back of a book, a very small one, which you slip into supplements or new laws or amended laws, and we call them pocket parts. And that's just historically what they've been called. It's how you could, these codes are bound. It's not like they're a 3-ring binder that you could 3-hole punch the supplement and put it in the binder. Instead, they developed a system for adding supplements or changes to the codes in the book so that you didn't have to publish it every month. You're just publishing it once a year or periodically. So pocket part supplements are how physically they made revisions to the code. And now with with things available electronically, obviously those changes can be made immediately, but also indicated that this is an amendment when the amendment took place or when the supplement happened. Annotated, anything that's annotated has references, case notes, discussion. So if you want to know more about the U.S. Code and references, you're going to look at the U.S. Code Annotated. And if you just want the code itself, you're going to just look at the U.S. Code. So state statutes, a couple of different kind of language. The initial publication is called the session laws as opposed to the slip law. The official publication is the state code. There are unofficial publications as well, available in print online, as most things are now. And then don't forget local ordinances, county ordinances, city ordinances are primary law as well. But cities and counties have the power to pass laws on specific things. So you won't have a county family code provision, you'll have a state code provision, but you'll have local trash provisions, street parking provisions, city rules that need to be followed, and those are local ordinances. In addition, other enacted law are administrative regulations. Now, administrative regs come into being very differently. They're not exactly voted on. An administrative agency like the EPA or OSHA or the Food and Drug Administration will propose a rule change, publish it in the Federal Register. There's public comment on that, and then the rule becomes law after that. You can still sue and say it's unconstitutional, but there's no voting that goes on. So administrative regulations are published in the Code of Federal Regs, the CFR. They get updated as well. And then other pieces of enacted law. Court rules or procedural rules are published. They're the rules of procedure, rules of evidence, rules of criminal procedure. They're enacted. It's a rule of court. And it's a code provision. So the court rules, frequently address when things are filed and what form they take. But the civil procedure is a code, criminal procedure is a code, and evidence is a code. Other kinds of enacted laws, you may have encountered these in some of your other classes. We have uniform laws and model codes. So uniform laws are created in an attempt to have a more homogeneous, in certain areas of the law, laws more homogeneous across the states to create uniformity, predictability, consistency, and for some areas of the law, that's really desirable. So there's an interest to have uniform laws. States can always not adopt them and not use them. And then model codes are sample laws that are offered to states to adopt in a kind of similar vein, so that there's more uniformity, consistency. It helps business. It helps people who want to relocate. You're regulated in similar ways. So how do you find all this law? And this is where I really want to encourage you to fool around with Westlaw. I hope you guys are doing the Westlaw video tutorials. There's a lot of them available. You are taking a citation and looking up things. You can search by a particular topic or a popular name. For example, you're searching for the 14th Amendment. I think most of us today are simply going to put, we're going to say 14th Amendment. But of course you could put this, which is the citation of the 14th Amendment. And that is how you would cite it. This is an abbreviated citation for the 14th Amendment. And that's the number of the 14th Amendment. So that's how you cite to a constitutional code provision. You do not typically use numbers in legal writing. You always write out numbers. We do capitalize the 14th Amendment. I haven't emphasized the Bluebook, and I don't think your authors have done a whole lot to emphasize the Bluebook. So I wonder if I should do a separate lecture on that. Maybe that's something we'll do when we are in class. But Bluebook citations, Bluebook is the official format for how you cite to cases, how you write things in writings for the court, in referring to legal documents, in writing for journals, and that kind of thing. So this is kind of an introduction to how you would, under the Bluebook Rule 12, cite to the U.S. Code. There's an official code and an unofficial code. This is a full U.S. Code citation, Title 18, U.S. Code, Section 242, and it was passed in 2000 or amended in 2000. So the title number, code, section, and the year of publication. When citing, so this is a federal statute, you can put in the title. So here it's Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, and it's Title 29 of that. So you can put the title of the act. So here's the title of the act or the statute, the title number 29 in the U.S. Code, the code, which is the U.S. Code, section, code section. And here it was published in the bound volume in 88, and then a supplement came out in 1993. And state codes, you guys, I'll put these slides up there. You guys can take a look at this. Not as concerned about state code. I would like to have you look at, if I can get this, the assignment. hold on. Let me see if I can get it all to fit within your screen. Does that fit within your screen? Now that you've seen everything on my laptop, let me move this over. Here we go. So, assignment 5.1, or assignment 5, you only have one assignment, and no discussion this week, because I really want to do something cool, but it requires putting you in groups, and I need to make that work in Blackboard, but we're going to do a Blackboard wiki. It's a cool assignment. I've done it with other online classes. I think you'll like it, but it needs to be set up and you need to not be stressed about getting feedback. So we'll start that in a week or two. So for this one, I want you to appreciate or notice that your authors give you multi-step instructions on your assignments. Please do not skip a step. This is on purpose. As a paralegal, as a lawyer, as a legal thinker, not missing steps and getting multi-step instructions is very common, and you must double check that you don't miss any steps. So for your benefit here, I numbered what you need to do. So this assignment is about enacted law. You're gonna cover the types of enacted law and guidelines for when to use each type. In the paper, you're gonna begin by locating an example of these 5 examples of enacted law. And you should cite to it. And then you're going to identify and describe each example. Sorry. Uh-oh, what'd I do? Identify and describe each example of the following examples. So you have 4 down here. And that's not very well written, is it? Oh, step 2, I want you to just confine yourself to these 4 down here, because I guess this could look like it's referring to the top of 5 above. Explain each of the following examples. That's so funnily written. That could be interpreted in several ways. So down here, explain each of the, I'll try and rewrite that after this video. Explain each of the following examples. So type of law, regulation, it represents when it is appropriate to use this type of law and regulation. All right, that is, I believe, very confusing. What you really need to do is for each sample that you locate in step 1, you are going to answer 1 through 4 for each of them. So your answer would be 1, what is a federal public law? And for step 1, you're just going to find examples. You're going to find 5 examples. And for each of those 5 examples, you're going to go to step 2 and answer 1 through 4, which means you're going to have 20 responses. First, you're going to have 5. Is that right? Did I do the math right? You're going to have 5 responses to step 1. And for each of those 5 responses, you're going to have 4 additional questions to identify and describe. So for a federal public law, you're going to find 1. And then you're going to answer in step 2, the type of law, the regulation it represents. When is it appropriate to use this type of regulation? The source in which you found the law and regulation, and the official title and citation for the law and regulation according to that source. All right, so you guys grapple with that. I'll change some of the language up here to make it clear, and I'll also put a note in Blackboard. And then you're just going to upload that onto Blackboard for me by this Sunday. It's not too onerous. You guys can do it. I know it's Tuesday, and I'm giving you this assignment, but it should be okay. All right, so that's me, and I will be sending you more messages online.